Hello, all, and welcome to this latest episode of Chasing Green Arrows. We'll be doing recorded videos in preseason, and this is our latest version of them. Today, I'll be discussing the highest owned players to avoid. There are plenty of candidates, to be very honest, but I'll run you through the seven or eight which I think are the prominent ones. But before I start, I'd like to request everyone to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support would mean a lot to us, especially in preseason when all three of us, Dean, Jani, and I, are working round the clock to ensure that you guys get content every single day of the week. So I'll start with the goalkeepers. The first goalkeeper is actually the highest owned goalkeeper. It's Turner, Matt Turner from Nottingham Forest. He's 24.5% owned. Now, he was a very popular pick last season when he was first choice for the club. But his performances weren't actually up to the mark, which is why he sort of dropped down the pecking order. He's actually not even second choice at this point. He's third choice. Now, I assume the reason why people have picked him is because they assume uh, that for 4 million he's probably closest to starting. But firstly, he's not close to starting at all. And secondly, the main reason why I don't like his selection is because he's owned by so many managers. If people realize that they don't have a starting keeper and they start selling him, then you will likely incur a price value drop on Matt Turner. So I would rather pick a 4 million keeper who is low owned and who has lesser chance of dropping in price at the start of the season. Now, the second keeper who I think is high owned and is one that you should probably avoid is Jordan Pickford. Now, don't get me wrong; he was fantastic last season. I mean, he was actually the top scoring goalkeeper. Having said that, the problem with him is, despite his 18.4% ownership, his first four fixtures aren't great to begin with. Everton are playing Brighton, Spurs, Bournemouth, and Villa. Now, all of these are fixtures you'd expect Everton to concede in. And the fact that he's priced at 5 million. Had he been 4.5 million, I would have been all over his selection. But at 5 million, it becomes a lot more trickier to justify, especially when you have the likes of Flecken at 4.5, the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper at 4.5, possibly even a Chelsea goalkeeper at 4.5, a Crystal Palace goalkeeper at 4.5 million. So it becomes trickier to justify Pickford for the additional zero point 0.5. And a very similar case applies to Emmy Martinez from Aston Villa, who's also actually 13.1% owned. And I think there are better keepers out there, as mentioned earlier. And if you want a cheaper route into these defenses, there's the likes of Mikalenko and Konza available, which are better, cheaper alternatives for the same defense. Now, moving to defenders who are high owned and who shouldn't be high owned. First up in the list is Kieran Trippier. He's 14.5% owned. I think it's a bit of a stretch, probably given his history in the past that he's done really well for FPL managers who want him in the previous seasons. But I think this season may probably not be the case. Firstly, he's been linked with a move away to either Turkey or in Germany. So if he ends up leaving, and if you have selected him in your game week one squad, that's far from ideal. You don't want to have a 6 million defender which you're looking to transfer out by game week two or game week three just because he's left the team. And what's worse is that you'll probably structure your squad around him, given his price. He's at a premium price. So at that kind of price, I just don't want to take any kind of risks with him. And if he doesn't actually end up leaving, then someone like Livermento could be a good alternative at 4.5 million. Now, the fifth player I'd like to mention here is Ben White. Now, Ben White is 6.5 million owned. Uh, he's owned by 12.1% of the managers. At 6.5 million, he's an all right selection, but I think, given the fact that Arsenal have Timber back, they've signed Calafiori, and with Gabriel and Saliba available at 6 million, I think they're a cheaper route into the Arsenal defense. And I don't think White justifies the extra outlay, especially once European commitments start. I'm just not sure how many minutes he's going to get on a consistent basis. So I would actually go with rather with one of the centre backs. Moving on to midfield, the first name is actually Phil Foden. Now he's 32% owned, and this is a big name. He's in a lot of squads that I see, but at this point in time, I'm not even sure he's going to start game week one. And this is not something which I'm saying. This is actually something which was alluded to by Pep Guardiola earlier in his press conference, where he mentioned that some of the players who were at the Euros, they will be given some time off and they will arrive late. He basically said that he doesn't expect them to be back by the Shield, but they may or may not be back by game week one. And if Foden's minutes are in doubt for game week one, then there's obviously no doubt, no point in picking him. Having said that, if Guardiola does give us a green light before the game week one deadline, then Foden is a good pick for sure. Other than that, it's I think most of the midfielders that I see, they're fairly decent. Maybe Garnacho at 11.9% ownership is another name I'd like to mention, who I don't think should be as high owned. Now he sort of had a good season last year, and he was a 4.5 million enabler, which is why people still sort of have him at the back of their mind for FPL selection. But at 6.5 million, I think there are better options out there. For example, the Forest Meds or Nkunku, I would rather go with them as enablers. Coming to the forwards, now the first forward that comes to mind is actually the highest scoring forward from last season, and one who has a 54.8% ownership at the time of recording. That is Olly Watkins. Now, Olly Watkins was a tremendous performer for us last season, and I have no doubts that he'll do well again this season. The problem is that he comes at an awkward price point at 9 million, and I think it's better if you rather start with someone like an Isak for zero point 0.5 million less. Now we know for sure that Isak is on penalties. Watkins may or may not be on penalties. And while I expect Watkins to do really well over the course of the season, I think you're probably better placed by starting with Isak and then sort of deciding after 2 or 3 game weeks what to do with Isak and whether or not to move him on to Watkins. Now, the first two fixtures for Watkins are West Ham away, which under the new manager Lopetegui, he's a defensive manager primarily. So I don't expect this to be a high scoring game, and then it's Arsenal for Villa in game week two. So the first two fixtures for Watkins can be avoided, and in the same time, for example, Isak is Southampton home and then Bournemouth away. So you can then perhaps look at making the switch in game week three when Isak so when Watkins has a greater and a much better run of fixtures. Now the final name I'd like to mention in this list is Ivan Toney. Now Ivan Toney is again being linked with a move away from Brentford. He's 11.9% owned, but again, it's too risky selecting a player who may leave midway during the window after the game week one deadline, because you don't want to be booking in transfers in advance for players who might end up leaving. If Toney stays at Brentford, he's a good pick, but I'm not sure that will be the case. So with the information that we have available right now, I think Toney is probably an avoid for me. Thank you everyone for watching this video. Make sure to like it once again and to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Make sure to leave your feedback in the comments down below. Good luck.